you really think I would stop just with new handlebars? Wow! Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Dino. Not too long ago, I chose to upgrade the handlebars on my Suzuki DR650. I went from the standard steel bars with a crossbar to an upgraded fat bar without a crossbar. And that's one of the things that I really was interested in, was gaining some real estate on the triple tree to mount things like my camera and my GPS. Now, I got a lot of great comments from that video. Thanks everybody for all your comments, especially the comments about the opening on that video. If you commented on it, thank you very much. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, and I really do appreciate everyone's support for this channel. Believe me, it's so fun to make videos for you. You have no idea how enjoyable I find it. But one of the biggest comments was, when are you gonna put on some real hand protection on your DR650? Not just the little plastic wind deflectors that Suzuki puts on, but some actual brush guards, bark busters for lack of a better term. Well, today we are gonna do that. I bought a set, and following the theme of cheap, inexpensive handlebars, I bought a knockoff set. I'm going to show you what those look like. So now, why don't we take a look at exactly what I bought and what we're going to put on the bike today. So sit back and we'll take a look. Okay, let's take a look on the bench here, what exactly we're going to put on my DR today. The first thing are these Uri grips. I really like these Uri grips. I've had 3 sets of these in the past, and I find them to be really comfortable grips. They have a really good anti-vibration property. They're really sticky and they're thick. They fit my hand really, really well. The only reason I'm putting these ones on is, like I said, I had to cut the end off of these to shorten them up a little bit the last time I mounted them on this DR650. So I want to put a full-size set on. Now for the star of the show. Here it is. And if you were expecting real bark busters, you don't really know me all that well yet. I'm a value shopper. I found these on Amazon. I think they were under $40. I'll look it up. I think they're around $37 or maybe they were $43. They have a flash of red that's going to match that handlebar, and the aluminum looks to be in really good shape. Now, these are JFG Racing. Woo. More fast stickers that I probably will not put on. I'm not a big sticker person on my bike anyway. But the aluminum extrusion here looks to me to be 8 or 10 millimeters thick. We'll measure that up here on the vernier so that you can see exactly how thick they are. And in terms of overall length, these are about 32 centimeters or about 13 inches. So they're almost half an inch. Oh yeah, they're a full 10 millimeters thick. So they're almost, well, they're 3/8 of an inch thick, over a foot long, and they come with decent hardware. You know, this isn't going to be high quality aerospace steel and aluminum, but overall, I think the parts look pretty good. There's some adjustments in here, whether you're using a fat bar like I am or the factory steel bar. I think you could mount either one of these. The hardware looks okay. It looks like it might be die cut or machined out aluminum. And it's all right. It's got some sharp edges on it, but I think in general these look pretty good, and they get a fairly good rating as well. Now, I've held these up to the bike, and they do really look like they're going to fit relatively well. And one of the things I like about these is they have this step down in them. And I've read on a couple different forums that if you're gonna put brush guards of any kind on, you should look for ones with this step down here. It allows better clearance for your control levers as they can pass over top. I'm not sure if that's true or not. These ones had them, so that's what I ordered. What we need to do first, I suppose, is get the old hand guards off and lay these up against there and see how they're gonna fit. I'm going to get started by removing my factory grips because I'm going to change these anyway. I'm not going to show you how to do this. I've done this a number of times, but I'll get these off and we'll go from there. I will tell you this about removing grips off of a stock DR650 handlebar. And I talked about this in the video I made about replacing the stock bars with these fat bars. The reality is, the clutch side of the stock DR bars will come off relatively simple. They're just glued on like any other grip. However, the throttle side, well, it is glued on there with something I have no idea. It's almost bonded to the throttle tube. It took me about 45 minutes to get that original stock grip off of the throttle tube. And I'm going to include a link down in the description if you want to watch that video and see how much trouble it can be to get the stock grip off. And at that point, make the decision whether or not you want to go through that or simply go to ProCycle in the States and order an aftermarket throttle tube and put that on with whatever grips you so choose. The decision is yours, but for me, I'm just going to get to work and get these grips off. With the grip off, you can see I probably have 3/8 to half an inch of extra grip on the new Uri grips that I bought. To accommodate that extra length, I need to move both the clutch and brake lever and the throttle tube assembly inboard a little bit. When I originally put the Uri grips on, the stock bars were a little bit narrower, and because there's a locating pin inside the turn signal and the throttle tube housings here, you really can't just loosen them and slide them inside. You can modify the locating pin. It's just plastic and it's molded into these housings, and then you can slide them inboard. But you want to be able to get the grip in far enough that it's not going to rub on the inside of your new brush guards. Otherwise, your throttle tube is going to stick. It's not quite as important on the clutch side, but on this side, I believe you want to have a little bit of room so that that throttle tube can rotate. I'm going to include another link in the description down below on how I changed my bars out, and within that video, it shows you how to grind off the plastic locating pins inside the control housing. So if you're unsure about it, you can go back and watch that video before you put your new brush guards on. We'll start with the front brake lever by loosening it with an 8mm socket and sliding it inboard and gently tightening it up. On the back of the starter button, I'm going to loosen one of the JIS screws and slide it again inboard against the front brake lever. Finally, I'll do the same with the throttle tube. Now, don't tighten these too much. You're going to adjust these once you get the brush guards put on. On the clutch lever, it takes a 10mm socket. And again, you don't need to overly tighten these because, again, you're going to be adjusting them once you get those brush guards on. Once you get these inside, make sure to compare them with a grip to make sure you've left enough room, and you're done. There are many ways to cut the back of the grip off, and originally what I did is I just used an X-Acto knife and cut the whole end of the grip off, but I really want to have this little raised rubber area here left on the grips if I at all can. They do sell special tools to do this. Today I'm going to use a 3/4 inch, and I don't know what this is here, a 5/8 hollow chisel here that you use for making holes for grommets and whatnot. The 5/8 fits in really well into the clutch side, and hopefully it'll make a big enough hole that it'll go on there. The 3/4 inch does fit in, but it's a little sticky, and I might lubricate this with a little bit of hairspray to get it in and get it back out while I punch out the bottom of this hole. If the hole isn't quite big enough, I think I might be able to use a sanding drum on my Dremel to open that up. If I have to, that's what I'm going to try. If not, maybe I'll get an X-Acto knife in there and away we go. But let's try that and see if it works. I'll begin by placing a block of wood in my bench vise here. I want to do this so I protect the end of my hole punch. I'm going to take the smaller of the two grips, insert the 5/8 hole punch into it, and I'll use a socket to go inside to give it a little bit of length so I can actually strike it. I'll use a heavy hammer, and with some good straight strikes, I'll pound straight through, and it'll make a perfectly round hole on the end of the grip. I just want to compare this to make sure that the hole is indeed big enough to accept the brush guard plug, which fits in just perfect. On the larger side, I'll use this 3/4 inch, and again I'm going to lubricate this with a little bit of hairspray. And I use the hairspray because that's the same thing I'm going to use to glue the grip onto the bike. Again, I'll give it some solid strikes, and then with this one I can just push it straight through. And it really did turn out well, and when I compared it, it looked like it would be okay and it would ride fine on the bar. So this seemed to turn out pretty well. Removing the stock throttle side cover is relatively easy. I'm going to use a number 2 GIS screwdriver and a 10mm socket driver here. You can use a regular socket or even an open-end wrench. There's a nut underneath that you're going to hold, and then with your GIS screwdriver you're just going to loosen this off. This nut and bolt assembly holds on your brake lever. So as you pull this out, all right, and it actually threads out, I should say that, this is kind of an interesting bolt fastener kind of thing right here. You're going to see it as I bring it out. So there it is. It's a shouldered threaded bolt like this. So you're going to have to reuse this. Then the factory cover comes off like that. Throw that away. Here's that bolt from the throttle side for your front brake. And you can see this long shoulder that rides right here in your brake lever hole. So when you put this back together, it's not a bad idea to apply a little bit of grease right on that shoulder. This one's not bad, so I'm just going to put this back in. It takes a bit to line it up, but this threaded shaft will thread into the bottom right here and lock the whole system down. It's a little bit tricky, especially when you're trying to do it on camera here. Let me just look over the top. But believe me, this is how it goes, and it threads down in like this. And you'll see it'll come right out the bottom. You just snug it down like that, and don't forget to put the nut back on the bottom. Now when you take the first handguard off, it's going to have this little bushing here that goes with the handguard. You're not going to need that, but you do need to remember to put this lock nut back on so this bolt does not vibrate out. So I'm just going to spin this up with a nut driver, and there we go. Everything works perfectly. On the clutch side, well, the brush guard's held on completely differently. There's two nuts. There's an Eggcorn nut on top and just a regular nut on the bottom. You take these two nuts off, sort of expand the inside of the brush guard, it'll pop off, and then it's free. It's really weird how they use two different systems. I'm sure there's an engineering reason for it. This is how they come off, and I'm happy that they're not on here anymore, to be honest with you. Such a pain. Well, that was a little more difficult than I anticipated getting this thing off. In the end, I needed a screwdriver to pry that off. And I'm wondering if it might have just been easier to pull that whole bolt assembly out of there. If you've done this before and you know a better way to get this thing off, please put it down in the comments for other people to enjoy and use when they go to do this project themselves. Depending on how your bars and your levers and what accessories you have on your bars are set up on your bike, it's a good idea to get everything as loose as possible so we can fit that bracket in here and position it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide the bracket on, get it loose, and show you how to set it up. It's pretty easy. I'll just fit this plug in the end of the bar here, and then using a soft face dead blow, I'm just going to tap it in. You may have to loosen this off just to get it so it can drive all the way in. And I'm going to leave just a little bit of space on mine, but that's pretty good. It looks all right. Next, we're just going to figure out how this is going to best mount on the bars. I'm just wiggling this in around all of the wires and controls. I'm going to use the thinnest of the bushings here to go around the bar to see if that works first. Then we're going to insert our hardware to hold this thing square if we can. I'll use a 5mm Allen key to lightly tighten down the hardware here. And now you're sort of seeing how this system is going to work. It's all going to bolt together. Everything's still really loose here, just to try and get it to line up as well as possible. But you can see it's already looking pretty good. I'm going to back off so you can see what it looks like, but there's lots of clearance on the levers. This is probably where this is actually going to stay. This looks pretty good. I like it. For me, because I've modified where my turn signals are, I have to use a little bit of a flexible Allen key here to get this to tighten down, but it's coming. And I think I'm going to have to get just a regular Allen key in there to fully tighten it. Overall, though, I like the look of this. It fits well. Looks good. Let's get the other side mounted up and then we'll see how it looks. It should go exactly the same way. I'm pretty confident of it. One thing that I did notice about this kit that is a somewhat little bit frustrating, but I suppose I can understand it, is there were no instructions with this kit. So when it did come to adjusting the position of all the different bracketry and whatnot, originally I mounted it so the bracketry was facing upwards on the bar. So it swooped up as high as it could go. And everything fit really well, but it was giving me some problems with interference with my clutch cable, and I was really worried that if I got in a crash, the bar would actually impact the banjo fitting on the brake lever. So I ended up reversing and putting all of the bracketry facing low underneath the controls basically, or underneath the bar. And it worked much, much better. You can see that in this video cutouts that I'm showing you here. So I guess the reasoning that I think the lack of instructions isn't terrible is the fact, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have to figure out how this kit is going to best fit on your bike, whether it's a DR650 with stock bars, aftermarket bars, whether it's a KLR or a KTM or a BMW, everything's going to be a little bit different. So you're going to have to fit and refit things a few times before you get it the way that you want it and the way in which it works best for your bike. So the long and short of it is basically you're going to have to tinker a little bit to get one of these kits to work right. But again, I don't care whether you pay for the true bark busters or you buy what I bought, the $45 knockoffs. you're going to have to do a little bit of customizing to make it work for your bike. Well, what do you think? I think it looks really, really good, and I have to say they feel really good too, at least initially now that I've got them on. I really like this, and I'm glad that I chose to upgrade these, and I think they're going to provide me years of service. What are my initial thoughts on them though? Well, there's some pros and some cons that I see to these that I'll share with you right now. The pros are obviously cost. At $42 Canadian plus tax, these are pretty inexpensive. The build quality looks to be pretty good. I mean, some of the die cut or CNC machine bracketry might have been a little bit smoother, but everything lined up really, really well when I put it together, so that's a positive. And I think overall they look really, really good. I like them a lot. What are some cons then that I see with these initially, at least out of the box? Well, the lack of instructions could be a little bit challenging for some people. I think it's somewhat self-explanatory. And again, as I said earlier, you do need to mess around a little bit with the bracketry to get it to fit right. But overall, I don't think it's anything that the average home mechanic couldn't figure out on their own. So it's a con, but it's not a huge one. I suppose the hardware itself, the nuts, the bolts, that kind of thing, I'm not sure on how strong they are. They're probably adequate, but when you get this stuff from China like this, you're never sure how well it's heat treated or how good the chrome plating is if it's not stainless, which I'm still not sure if this is stainless or just chrome plated. Time will certainly tell if it starts rusting. And the plastic wind guards themselves here, the plastic feels a little bit less flexible than I would like. So we're gonna find out after I bash through a few trees and stuff whether or not these are gonna stand up, whether they're gonna crack or not. And I do wish they were a little larger. They're not gonna offer nearly as much wind protection as the stock wind little butterfly things do. But overall, I think that's pretty good because I always ride with gloves anyway, so the wind isn't a huge issue for me. Overall, I really think they look good, they seem to function properly, but again, I'll follow up with these later after I've had some time to ride. And now that we're getting into the end of October here, well, the riding season's coming to a bit of a close here, although I know my buddy Carl wants to get out and do some fall riding, so hopefully I'll have enough time to give you some feedback on them. Anyway, I guess that kind of wraps up today's episode on installing brush guards on your DR650. I hope the video was helpful, and if it was, please, by all means, leave a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are, especially if you have experience with either these or other styles of brush guards and your opinion on them. If you really do like it, by all means, leave a like, and if you haven't yet, you could always subscribe. It does help the channel to grow and get exposure to other people. Until then, I'm gonna get back, just tidy a little bit of stuff up in the shop. I hope you have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you soon, and remember, tinker easy. Bye for now.